Here's a question. Is the removal of the burden of toxins from an organism sufficient to allow healing? Is there one disease and many kinds of people, or are there many diseases and one kind of person? Is the key to healing the getting of things for which the person has an unmet need? Or is it the avoidance or the ridding of things that are bothersome? Take a story. An esteemed colleague went to a neurologist in New York with a persistent problem of the legacy of toxicity he got from work as a graduate student years ago, and was told, well, you're going to die in 6 months. He sought the opinion of another neurologist who said, you're going to commit suicide in 6 months. Shows you the importance of a second opinion and the nuances that can be found in medical specialties. Well, what he did was he went on a water fast for 14 days and was sufficiently improved, went back for 10 more days and was cured. And the threat to his mortality was removed. What do you make of this? This is evidence-based medicine, although it goes to a basic principle. So I'd call it principle-based medicine, which I think is closer to what we do. This evidence-based medicine has all gotten wound up in a system of thinking that goes to the landscape of medicine that we're leaving, which is the name it, blame it, and tame it prescription pad medicine. Principle-based medicine says that there are certain basic principles that underlie what's going on in the health of the population that we serve, including ourselves, of course. So what are those principles? The principle is that there are certain underlying features in the landscape of our medicine that call for our attention when it comes to devising therapy for the individual. That landscape has to do with 3 overlapping circles of problems in detoxification, oxidative stress, and chronic inflammation, where the intersection of these circles is occupied with glutathione. Overarching that diagram is the problem of autoimmunity, which is the kind of final expression of the vicious cycles that get going when virtuous cycles in our physiology are thrown out of whack and descend into these self-reinforcing cycles. Is the job that we have to tailor our patients' therapies according to a system of measurements of every quirk in the patient's chemistry and immunology, and then tweaking these to get things better. A basic kind of orthomolecular approach. But I think Linus Pauling would be surprised to find that if we look carefully at some of the people who are most afflicted by the current environment, such as autistic children, we find that when we measure things, everything is wrong. It's what Boyd Haley calls the biochemical train wreck. Is there some overarching way of addressing that takes into consideration the basic principles of imbalance that have gotten wrong in these fundamental areas with the autoimmune umbrella over the whole thing? What would you do then? You would take a leaf from Colin Campbell's The China Study and do a plant-based diet. Very low nitrogen. After all, getting rid of nitrogen is one of the most expensive things that we do in the urea cycle and all of its interconnections. The next thing would be to go a step further, perhaps, in people who are very seriously ill and do, Esselstyn's version of that. His book is about cardiovascular disease, but it's about all disease. Don't eat anything with a face or a mother and oils. Would you clean up the gut by the way that our colleague did, by fasting? Or are there other ways to address the gut in terms of getting its flora rebalance. Well, of course, this is the dilemma. How do we do that? It is a very tough job. But has come along is replacing our old friends, the nematodes. And I think that that's going to turn out to be a major factor in the treatment of chronic illness, all chronic illness. As Yehuda Schoenfeld, a professor of immunology in Israel, one of the foremost immunologists in the world, says, at the end of the day, all chronic illness is autoimmune. And he doesn't mean it just in a semantic sense. He means in a practical, actionable sense. So if we take these two streams of thought that I encountered when I left the landscape of prescription pad medicine in 1971, and listen to stories from two different kinds of patients. One was a guy, an engineer, who he told me, this was not part of my discovery, he told me that he had discovered an incredibly sensitive system that he presented to the world of egg allergy, in which a tiniest amount of egg protein in his intake could give him a horrible inflammatory bowel disease. Another was a woman with crippling headaches, crippling migraine, who went to a chiropractic physician who said, take vitamin B6 and magnesium, and she got all better. This is there something you need to get side, and there's something you need to avoid side of our paradigm. This is the principle that underlies principle-based medicine. Well, these two streams of thought, when I had seen these two patients, I went on a quest, and I went to Linus Pauling, and then fell into a stream of thought that had to do with Paulings and David Hawkins, and started with Aldous Huxley and Abe Hoffer and Humphrey Osmond, and then on down through Roger Williams and the whole concept of biochemical individuality, for which Jeffrey Bland has been such a great spokesperson, and which John Pangborn has helped me in my own learning curve for about nutrition and biochemistry, and more recently Andy Browley and Richard Lord's wonderful, magnificent textbook of biochemistry for functional and integrative medicine is now the prize of my library. And on the other side is the stream of thought that came from Ted Randolph and Larry Dickey and Phyllis Safer and Bill Ray and so many others in the so-called clinical ecology, environmental medicine stream of thought. These two streams really are should still go under Linus Pauling's orthomolecular, the right molecules in the right amounts. After all, Huxley found that a little bit of the wrong molecule can do some amazing things to your brain. And this sparked some thinking about that then turned in the kind of megavitamin direction of thinking. But really the one term, orthomolecular, still is an eloquent term to express what we're talking about the two sides of our paradigm. Either you need to get something or you need to avoid something. At the end of the day, my own experience has been one that has led me away from tweaking everything from arginine to zinc in people to try to get things right, and depending on not so much being a tailor, but more a provider of a blanket of changes in diet and in flora that will help restore healing. Well, that's it. Thanks.